This is a controlled test, in which I want a proof the said in the document. To be more specific, this is a showcase of how damage reduction layering prevents any meaningful damage to go through. At the same time, we want to notice that the player's gear breaks faster than this player dies if he uses Teddy deviation and all the legitimate reduction stacking. At first, player fully repairs his gear. This allows us to measure the exact time it takes to break the gear of a player using New Bow Burden of Betrayal. This weapon has bounce effect, which acts like multiple instances of damage, causing increased wear and tear of any gear, unlike any other weapon or keyword effect. At first, I shoot a player with the bow a couple of times. This will fully stack effects of Stone Weaver gear. In this way, player receives 24% of general damage reduction for 10 seconds. At this moment, you can see player's defensive stats. They show 90% of general damage reduction and 62% weapon damage reduction. These stats become a bit lower with PvP adjustment slider. However, those are 2 max channels against any physical damage. Besides, you can also see crit damage reduction takes place in the defensive stats of the player, which serves an additional layer of defense. On the other hand, attacker maxed out all the offensive stats possible. Here we show mods. Each has 2 offensive stats, weapon damage and crit damage, which in total represent battle stats in the sheet. These are mods that not only passes stats required but also have synergy with the whole build. However, this build is not optimal for PvP because damage stats replace defensive stats. You will see the lack of status and weapon reductions in the defensive stats of the player. This is made for testing purposes only. So let's see if that damage is enough to do anything to a reduction stacked player. By the way, we apologize for not giving any information about the food buff used in this test. For the food buff, we used crumbly bread and whimsy drink in addition to that. Combined, these buffs give 50% of weapon damage, replacing possible defensive buffs. Here we need to remark one crucial moment. As you might notice, defending player Teddy was destroyed before applying 25% of general damage reduction for 9 seconds. However, a player still survives with Healing Syringe and Teddy's healing ability. This outlines that such amount of reductions is completely redundant and the bow nerf was unjustified. Such moments will happen a couple of times during this test just to confirm. To save you time, we speed this up to a key moment in the video. As you can see, a player taking constant damage for about 3 minutes didn't die until their gear broke. This highlights 2 things. First, this weapon was nerfed the wrong way. It should have reduced player health, not just gear durability. And second, deviants cause way more issues than weapons, turning players into absolute tanks and weapons into pea shooters. In this regard, we suggest that developers focus on nerfing the deviants listed in this document, rather than weapons that require mechanical skill, especially since these weapons underperform even in static tests.